Today's lesson is going to be how to crochet a baby cocoon. They are great for the winter and also for baby photography. The baby slips in there and is nice and cozy. Today's lesson we're going to need some yarn of your choice, a crochet hook recommended for your yarn, a stitch marker, a sewing needle and a pair of scissors. This is the wool that I'm going to use today. It's made of Vera and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's 100% acrylic, so it's not going to shrink in the wash. And it recommends a 7mm crochet hook, so that is what I'm going to use. First of all, we are going to make our slip knot, holding our short piece in our left hand between our middle finger and our thumb, wrapping the yarn over our pointy finger twice, and then holding down at the bottom. Grabbing the left one, pulling it up and over and dropping it down. Now if you need to, you can pull on the long piece and that will make it tighter. Wrapping your yarn around again, grabbing your left, pulling it up and over and down and pushing up with your finger. We're going to chain 4 and join to the first chain with a slip stitch. So we now have this little ring that we are going to be working into. So into our ring we want to work 6 double crochets. So first of all we want to chain 3. Counts as our first stitch, so it means we need to do 5 more double crochets into our ring. So that's wrapping your yarn, going into the middle, into the loop, pulling up a loop. We have 3 on our hook, yarning over, pulling through 2 and pulling through 2. Now this pattern will work on any yarn that you're going to use. Doesn't matter on the thickness or the size of the hook that you use. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's 5. And I'm working over the top of my tail here as well. And that's 6, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we want to join to our beginning chain here. So finding our chain, and we're joining into the top with a slip stitch. Now if you find this too tight, you can start with 12 double crochets into your ring. It doesn't make any difference to our pattern, it'll just make it wider at the bottom rather than pointy like that. Once we have our first row done, we are just going to flip it. So see how it looks like a little, kind of like a little bowl. It's got a dip in the middle there. We're just going to flip it the other way. Because we always want to be working on the outside of our work. Now, if you're using a really big hook like me and some thick yarn, you probably won't need your stitch marker because you're going to be able to see where the beginning of each row is. If you don't, this is where you're going to use your stitch marker. So what you're going to do is place your stitch marker, and this time place it to the right of your work and just hold it in there. And we're going to chain 3. Because this is the beginning of the next row. So now we want to put 2 double crochets in each stitch around. So going into that same stitch where that chain 3 is coming out of, we're going to work a double crochet. I'm not going to use my stitch marker because my stitches are so big I won't even need to use it. I will be able to tell when I get back around. So going into the next stitch, working 2 double crochets into that same stitch, working into the next one with 2 more. So when you do 2 into the one stitch, it is classed as an increase. Next one, we're doing 2, and every stitch around we are doing 2 stitches into the same stitch. And like I said before, you should be able to tell when you're back around to your beginning of your row. See how there, that's obviously the start because it's a big chunk up from the bit there. So we should have 12 stitches around on this row, which I've double checked, and now we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. So you can tell the top of the chain 3 because there's our first chain, there's our second, and here's our third. So going in there into the top of our chain 3 with a slip stitch, and that completes row 2. Next row we want to chain 3, and we want to work 2 into the next stitch. This counts as our first double crochet. Into the next stitch we want to work an increase, so that's 2 into the same stitch. And into our next one we want to work 1. Into our next one we want to work an increase, so 2 into the same stitch. Into our next one we want to work 1. Into our next stitch we want to work 2. Now I apologise if this colour is hard to see on the camera. This is an order for a customer, so I thought I may as well make a tutorial as I go. So it's 1 into the next, and I don't want to make another one because these take a long time to make. Not a long time, but I didn't fancy making another one because I don't have any use for it. So that's 1 in that one, so 2 in the next. One in the next stitch, 2 in the next, one in the next, and 2 in the next, and this should be your last stitch. We always end our row on an increase. So slip stitching into the top of the chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, slip stitching into there. We've completed our row. We're going to chain up 3, and we're going to do 1 in the next stitch. So our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So that was a double crochet in the next stitch, and now we want to work an increase. And on this row, between our increases, we are going to have 2 double crochets, but 1 in each space. So it's 1 in one, 1 in the next. That's 1, 2, and then an increase. So that's 1 in one space, 1 in the next stitch, 2 in the next. So can you see a pattern forming there? It's 1, 1, and 2. So that was our 2 into our same stitch. So it's 1, 1 in the next, and 2 in the next. So if you can remember that little sort of pattern, 1, 1, 2, you'll know that this row is what you have to do. So that's 1, 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one. That's 1 in the next one, 1 in the next one, and 2 in the next. That's 1, so that must be 2 in the next because it's our last stitch. And remember what I said, we always end on an increase. So again, we slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3. You know the top's the third one because it was only a chain 3, so the third one is our last one. Now what we want to do, chain 3 again. We want to double crochet into the next stitch, and this row we're going to put 3 in between our increase. So that's 1, 2 into the next stitch, 3. So that, see that? It's 1, 2, 3 all in their own stitch, and we're going to increase into the next stitch. So this row we have to count 1, 2, 3 and then an increase. So 1, 2, 3, and all 3 are in their own separate stitch, and an increase. That's 1, 2, 3, and an increase. That's 1, 2, 3, and an increase. Now I apologise if I ever go too fast in a video. It's funny, it's quite hard for advanced crochet to so slow that beginners can see it. So we try our best to go as slow as we can so that you can keep up. So that was an increase, so now it's 3 again, isn't it? So it's 1, 2, and 3, and an increase. One, 2, 3, and our last one is an increase. And you know, if you don't end up on an increase, you've done a mistake on that row somewhere, or even the previous row. So going into the third one, 1, 2, and 3 with the slip stitch. Want to chain up 3. Now you can probably see a pattern forming each row. We get one more stitch in between our increases. So that was 3 in between our increases, so it's 1, 2, 3. And the next stitch was an increase, so 2 stitches into the same stitch. So this row is going to be 4 stitches, 1 in each space, and then an increase. So that's 1 in the next is 2, next stitch 3, next stitch 4, and then an increase. And every row of increases is the same. So each row, so the next row will be 5 in between our increase, the next row will be 6 in between our increase, and so on. And you just keep increasing until it is wide enough. So it doesn't really matter what yarn or hook that you use, it's just the amount of increase rows. So it's quite adjustable that way. You might use only a few rows for really thick stuff, but you might use a lot for thinner yarn. So that was our increase there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. That's in the next one, 1. In the next one, 2. In the next one, 3. In the next one, 4. And then an increase. So just continue that pattern all the way around until you get back to the end of your row.